This is part of us, and we are so welcome, so pleased that you're here to share a bit more about the work of One Can Trust before we go out and do some collecting. I didn't check with you. Do you mind if we video what you say?
Not at all.
Brilliant.
I'm not too sure you really want to see it.
There'll be others online who want to see it. Do we need to stand over here, Mark? Where's the camera?
Yeah.
I'm actually going to leave you to it. That's
Oh, right, good.
Right?
Yeah, that's fine. How do you want me to?
We've got about 15 or 20.
Yeah, okay. And time for questions?
Yeah, that would be lovely.
Okay. Good. Thanks, mate. And hi, everyone. Thanks so much for the invitation to come along today and talk to you about One Can Trust. I'm assuming that a fair amount of what we do is known to you. If that's a wrong assumption, please signal now. I'll go right back to basics. But I'll probably ought to say a little bit. Okay, just a little bit of background. So we're a food bank that services the south of Buckinghamshire. So if you think geographically, that's pretty much everything from Stoke-on-Church right over to Ivor, Devon. So we very much touch the outskirts of West London. And from north to south, Brisbane down to Marlow, Berlin. So it's a wide area. If you look at it in terms of population, it's probably about 250,000 people is the area we're covering. So we provide food basically for people who are in difficult financial circumstances. Those people have been referred to us by any number of agencies, typically social care, could be schools, could be churches. So it's a wide range of trust housing associations, trusted partners who recognise people who are really struggling and need support. And as I say, we provide the food to help that family, that household. Typically we do it for 4 weeks initially, and then if the support is still needed after that, we will continue to provide it. Pretty much until the individual or the referrer has decided they no longer need that support. The vast majority of the food that we distribute is, of course, the native food, so thank you straight away for everything you've done today in terms of what the food you may be collecting, but also I know you've given an awful lot of food in the past. And in fact, I think I was here 5 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, certainly I've been here before talking about One Can. So it's a long relationship, a long-established relationship between your church and our charity, and one that we really appreciate, so thank you so much. The numbers that we are supporting have risen dramatically. I think when I was here 4 or 5 years ago, I was saying, gosh, the numbers are rising rather dramatically, and I think we were talking there probably in the region of 150, 200 people a week that we were supporting. Certainly before COVID, it was about 225, 250 a week. Give you an idea of where we're at now. So in December, we supported 850 people on average every week in that geographical area. And most of that rise has happened over the course of the last year. So I think we were probably one of the first food banks that really experienced across the country the sudden impact of the cost of living crisis last winter. We spotted it very early on. We saw these numbers rising. We couldn't quite get to grips with it. We were part of a network of food banks. We were in touch with food banks nationally saying, is everybody else seeing this? And they were not yet. And then suddenly about a month or two later, everybody else was saying, wow, we're experiencing exactly the same thing. So that's what we're dealing with, is that very sharp increase, which of course, as you can imagine, puts pressure on every aspect of our system and how we operate. We need basically almost 4 times the number of food donations, the volume of food donations that we were receiving before the epidemic, the pandemic, COVID. We need vast amounts more time from volunteers than we ever had before. As volunteers to collect food, volunteers to bring food into the warehouse, volunteers to help us in the warehouse, and volunteers to help us get it out to people who need it. So it has been a massive scaling up of our operation over the course of the last year. I say to everyone involved in Food Bank, our core measure of success, if you like, our core mission is, if someone is referred to us for help, do we respond quickly and do we give them the food that they need? And we don't have to complicate things beyond that. Do we actually do what we're meant to do? And I'm really proud to say the fact that despite all that pressure we've had over the last year, every household has been referred to us, sometimes just with a few hours' notice. We've always been able to respond. We've always given the people the food that they need at the point when they need it, as efficiently as we possibly can. And we've only been able to do that because of the tremendous support we've received from within the community. And that is mainly volunteer effort, as I say, in terms of either generating the food or actually distributing it at the tail end of that process. So it's tough, there's no doubt about that, but we're coping, and because I think that resilience we have in our local community. Graham asked me to sort of think about it a bit more, say a little bit more about, what's really behind this. We talk about the cost of living crisis, what does that really mean? And why are people being referred to us in such large numbers? And indeed, who are these people? What are the kind of characteristics we're seeing? One of the things we do now, we've been doing really for about the last 18 months, is every household that is referred to us, we have a volunteer who will phone them in the first instance, and probably spend about an hour on the phone to that household, just exploring in a lot more detail what the circumstances are, what's got them to the position where they've been referred to us, that they need this support. And that's in part to help us frame further support that we can give to them. I'll come on to that in a minute. But it also gives us a valuable insight into what actually is happening, why people are struggling. And it really is, in many cases, it's difficult to kind of nail it down to one issue. The issues are very complex. And the circumstances in many cases unique. But let me kind of broadly speaking separate it into two groups. So this is a very broad segmentation. There are people, lots of people who refer to us, who are in work, who do have employment, sometimes full-time employment, but their income is just simply not sufficient to meet the ongoing demands on the family and the household. Typically, there'll be people who are either on minimum wage or are on 0 hours contracts. Okay? And I think there is an issue, that particularly in this part of the country, where housing costs are very high, particularly if you're in the rented sector, proportionate to most income. It's actually very difficult to make ends meet. And so a lot of people who are being referred to us, as I say, are people who've got jobs, have got families to support, but are really genuinely struggling, and they've been hit very hard, very suddenly by this broad increase in costs, whether that's food, whether that's fuel, whether that's just heating the house and putting the lighting on. And I think one of the things always to remember is the way that we talk about the cost of living increase, in terms of food in particular, it's the basic staples where the most pronounced increase has been in terms of food costs. So it's the poorest people who have been hit hardest by the cost of living increase relative to their income. So people who are poor going into the cost of living increase have felt it far more painfully than the rest of us. So there's one group that I would say who have struggled, who are in work. There's another group of people who haven't got employment, and that may be because they're just simply unemployed but looking for work. It could be that they're sick and on benefits. It could be a whole range of issues. Particularly we're finding now a lot of carers being referred to us. So they've got caring responsibilities that prevent them from going into work, and they are dependent on benefits. And what we definitely see time and time again is people saying that the benefits that they receive just simply don't meet the demands on their household budget, and that they are really struggling. That's not everyone, but that is a universal kind of comment, well not universal, it's a very common comment we're picking up through our feedback, is that people really are struggling with that. So what does that mean? I think what it says for us is try as we can to help alleviate and tackle some of the problem. Some of the issues go much bigger than us, much bigger than indeed this community here. They are what I would call policy issues, political issues, and they are important issues that we need to debate as a society. I think more so than we have done for many years. Namely, how do we support people who are not able to work, who are not able to go out and get a job and bring the income in that they need? Do we actually say that we want to support to have an appropriate standard of living, a good standard of living, or increasingly are we, as I believe we're finding, that people who are struggling to find work, actually we're condemning them almost to poverty, and a kind of poverty that is really grinding. Because one of the other things that comes out of these discussions we have with people, more and more now, is the sense of hopelessness that they feel. That they can see the position they're in, but they're really struggling to find a way out of it. It's very, very difficult when you're at the bottom to find your way out again. So what we're doing more and more is not just providing the food, but also now talking to how we can help people get back from that kind of position of hopelessness. So over the course of the last year, in particular, what we've done is two things really. We've got what we call our food programs, and we've got what we call our community support program. I'll talk about the community support in the first instance. Well, what essentially that is building upon those initial 1 hour interviews with people who refer to us to help steer them towards other sources of support that they might be able to draw upon. So that could be debt counselling for some people. It can simply be putting them in touch with social groups. In some cases, we've been helping people get fuel vouchers. We've been helping people apply for benefits. We've actually also helped a guy get a loan for some essential work equipment that you need so he could get back into work and start picking up his old job. So the whole number of different ways in which we're trying to help people get back, if you like, on the ladder. That's been enormously successful in terms of the response that we've had to that. One of the key things I think about it as a kind of an idea is that essentially what we're doing there is using volunteers, but they're trained and qualified volunteers. In most cases, it's people who are social workers or health visitors, nurses, who have retired or are now working part-time but also want to do something in their spare time. So it's another angle to the voluntary perspective of what we do, which I think is immensely powerful, and again speaks volumes about the kind of capacity within our local communities to help people, that there are volunteers with valuable skills who, if we can support them and get them involved, actually can contribute so much back to society. So that's the community support program. I mentioned the food programs as well. One of the other things that we're confronting is a lot of people who are referred to us are struggling actually with basic, what you might call basic cookery skills. They lack confidence in the kitchen. They're not too sure when we give them food passes in some cases what they're meant to do. So we've been running a whole series of cookery classes really designed for people on low budgets to help them either with the food we give them or with the food they are able to buy. Actually, how can they get healthy, nutritious meals that are affordable within the limited budget they've got? So we've got a member of staff who's trained up to run that, and she has again got a good team of volunteers, and we run those classes pretty much weekly now across the area. The other thing we're doing, allied to that, is again trying to plug some of the gaps in the system. So one of the things, and you may recall Mark Rashford was very much at the forefront of all this, was the recognition that outside school term time, some families with children, particularly those that depend on school meals, free school meals, really do struggle. So what we've been doing over the last year during school holidays in certain parts of particularly High Wycombe is been running basically free lunch clubs, free dinner clubs to support people who are really, really struggling. So I don't know, I've probably eaten up all my time there, but at least it gives you an idea, I hope, of what we're doing, the kind of problems we're confronting, but also the kind of solutions we're coming up with. So once again, thank you for everything you do.
Andy, the point was just to get us beyond, let's give some food to one can trust, and you've really done that, certainly just those 15 minutes. It's brilliant. Let's take a moment, let's tell you what, let's just be silent for a moment, and then you can think of your questions during that time, and then we'll just ask a few questions. Okay, does anyone have any questions for Andy that come to mind?
I donate when I'm finishing my shopping. I put it in the cages. So what are the priorities now? Have they changed?
They do change quite regularly. We do have a store manager who does a weekly stock count, and he sends me the details, we talk about it and what we need to kind of emphasise. So they do kind of change. But there are some items that we tend to find regularly pop up to the top of the list of what we really need. So long life milk is often needed. meat meals, so tinned meat of any variety, which I know is difficult because, of course, it's more expensive. But any type of tinned meat we will typically want. What we don't normally need is baked beans. We have lots of baked beans. So, I mean, I'll never turn down baked beans, but if you go into our store, you'll see the row of baked beans is immeasurably longer than the row of tinned meat. So it's all about trying to get balance, I think. Does that help?
Yes, yes.
I mean, we do update the website every week, and it will say on the banner, this week we desperately need the following.
And I know also from previous visits, you are now sort of majoring on it, I don't think, but you're very happy we'll take monetary gifts as well, won't you? Because to pay for the staff that you employ and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And we can do that online.
You can do that online, yes, absolutely. There's a little bit on our webpage that says donate, and it tells you about donating food. It also tells you how to donate money if you want to do so.
And you mentioned about the bigger discussion nationally we need to have. How can we be involved in that? What sort of things? I mean, is it a place to work writing to our MPs, or what is it?
I think actually, you know what? I think the more and more we can, both local politicians and national politicians, make sure that they hear this, and they all accept it. No, I've sat down with local MPs and explained the position. I won't say which one because we've got a number that we work with, but I met with them in the summer, and this particular MP said to me, "What single thing would most, make a difference?" And I said, well, actually, the thing that would really help a lot at the moment is an above inflation increase in the level of benefits. Simple, and give people a bit more money. Well, that's totally unaffordable. I said, well, it's a question of priorities, isn't it? And sure enough, in later life, I like this argument, we'll get into my influence. Okay? Well, a few months later, we get an above inflation increase in benefits. So this MP voted for it, and I thought, well, there you go. There's something. But people and locally politicians will respond. So whether it's writing it to them or whether you see them mentioning it, we do get good support from Buckinghamshire Council, I have to say, that they appreciate the issue and they appreciate the importance of getting behind food banks.
Thank you. Sorry, I'll hold you there. Questions?
And where is it you run these cookery courses? Can I ask that question?
Well, at the moment...
And how many people do you get at the courses?
There are basically a couple of facilities we use most. There's a wonderful place called Hills Cafe in Micklefield, which is where we base most of our courses to date. And the reason there is because if you know High Wycombe, and anyone knows Micklefield, it's one of the more challenged areas of High Wycombe. So basing ourselves there means that we draw people in quite easily. It's also a very, very good facility to actually run cooking classes from. We've also used a number of other sites around High Wycombe. We've also got a link up with BQ School. And actually that's a model I want to try and replicate. So we're talking to Cressy School as well at the moment to see whether we can do it there. So what we do at Beachview is go in at the end of the school day, use the facilities there to both support, essentially it's mothers most of the time, but it's mothers plus children. So we actually get the children involved in the cookery classes as well. And if we can scale up in terms of capacity, then I'd like to see much more of that. Our focus is really going to be around those kind of things, going to be more challenged areas of probably High Wycombe to start with, so Micklefield, Castlefield, those kind of areas.
You mentioned that. Do you give to food to people in Marlow?
Absolutely. I mean, I said the geography is very, very broad. It's been a bit of a personal mission of mine, living as I do in Marlow, to inform people in our town that actually there is poverty in Marlow. Some people can't believe it, they will actually deny it, but actually we do have a very large number of people who are supporting in Marlow and the Marlow area. Very large.
Any other questions?
Just one. Competition is a terrible word to use in an operation like this. Your position in relation to food bank.
The food hub.
If we've suddenly got a choice
Okay.
of dropping some food, into this bucket or that bin, whatever, what happens? What are the food banks doing? Where are they
I
getting
think
the
the
supply
generally
from?
it's all the same thing. It's all going to the One Can Trust around here.
Okay.
There are other organisations, so there is the Wickham Food Hub, which has got, and they're working on a slightly different model. What I would say is, don't overthink it. Don't worry about it too much, because we collaborate. There'll be a phone call, if we're desperately short of long-life milk, we will put a call around and Chiltern or Food Hub or others will distribute to us, and then vice versa, we'll say, from there, if they're desperate, we'll help them out. So there is a system of sorts that works. Yeah.
Do you buy some bulk food yourselves? And do you get donations from supermarkets? Do we need to petition our supermarkets to support you?
The supermarkets, by and large, are pretty good at giving surplus food now. I think it's been a bit of an education for them that actually this is something that they should be encouraging and supporting. So most of the supermarkets around here, we've got arrangements, if they've got surplus fresh food, we will take. And that typically involves a volunteer turning up at 10 o'clock on the evening to take whatever's left over from that day and then bring it into the store the next day. So that works quite well. In terms of having to buy food, yes, we do. We do have to buy food. So I said we were hit last year, this time last year, with that sudden surge, cost of living crisis. Our food stocks just at that time were not sufficient to cope with it. So this time last year we spent £15,000 in 1 month on buying food, which rather kind of caused me a few sleepless nights, I have to say. And at one point we did touch on £20,000 in 1 month, having to just buy food to keep going. We're now, because we've scaled up our operations and food donations, we're now a bit more on top of it, a lot more on top of it. We typically spend about £3,000 to £4,000 a month in food. And that's typically those items that are kind of difficult for people to donate.
Yeah.
Or just generally, if you suddenly find a bit low on one item, we just have to go out. And we've got deals with a couple of supermarkets. Booker, cash and carry are pretty good. We'll make it work.
Just need to draw it in now, really.
Yes.
So so what we can do, we can go onto your website and give financially, we can donate food, whether it's supermarkets here or any other place we see collection points, we can write to, speak to our MPs, our local councillors, those sort of things. We can talk to other people about it.
Yeah.
Now we've had this great info this morning, we've got a bit more within our locker to share with others. Anything else?
Two thoughts, if I may. One, which is perhaps for you to go away and think about, is whether you would want to set yourselves up as a referring organisation. So it's not a big ask, it's a simple thing that if you root as your own local community, identify people who need support within the congregation or beyond, we're here to help. So there's no difficulty in you being set up as a referring organisation that you get online password, you can put people through to us and we will respond. So that's one thing I think to think about. The other is that one of the things that we grappled with really for quite a long time is trying to remove the stigma that some people feel about drawing upon support from us. So if you do know people who are struggling, and maybe people who are using our services, is to reassure them. Try and help remove, that's at a very personal level, try and help remove that stigma. Because it's probably one of the biggest barriers we face. People feeling embarrassed about drawing upon our help.
Thank you. Thank you. I wonder if we could, if you're able to stand, and let's just pray for Andy and the One Pound Trust. And I invite one or two people to just pray out loud with me. Just pray out loud as you feel led. Sorry, mate, I didn't check if that's all right with you. Of course, please.
Lord, give wisdom and courage to One Canada's Bay, our advocates for people who are struggling. And I pray that our political leaders would hear these voices. I pray that our nation would be aware and be generous to the needs of those who have less. Amen.
Amen.
And I pray that you will prompt us and remind us of the things that we can do that we've heard about today. That you will not let this just slip off our agenda, but Lord, as we go about our days in the coming weeks, that you will just nudge us by your Holy Spirit to buy those extra things, to get them to the right places, to write to the MP, whatever it is that's kind of on our hearts from this morning. Don't let it be snatched away, but help us to remember and to act on it. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
So Lord bless Andy as he chairs the trustees, give him your wisdom, support and uphold him in all that he does for the One Can Trust. Thank you for him and all those volunteers and employees there for the work that they do. And do pray for Andy's wife that you'll pour your healing power into her this morning. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Do take a seat. No, sorry, let's remain standing because we're going to sing.